Learned the suspect shot and killed his fiancee, and it may have happened in front of children inside that home. Police say the two each have children, but none that they share.
I told my husband, I said those are gunshots. I said, there's a body out there, and my heart just goes out to these young people. It's just so much. That's what Doris Benson told reporters on September 16, 2021, after watching her neighbor's fiancé chase her down the street and execute her in cold blood. At 2:30 in the morning, 5 children huddled inside their home, listening to their mother scream as she ran for her life. They heard the gunshots. They watched through the window as Deontay Sims walked back to the house alone, leaving 39-year-old Dena Taylor bleeding out on the asphalt. The firefighters had to return hours later to wash her blood off the street. But neighbors say the stain of this murder is permanent. What those children witnessed that night will haunt them forever. 5 children watched their mother die just weeks before she was supposed to walk down the aisle. Her wedding dress was still hanging in the closet when police arrived. The invitations had been sent. The venue was paid for. Dena Taylor thought she had found her fairy tale ending with a man she called her knight in shining armor. Instead, he became her executioner. And those 5 kids, they're now orphans because the man their mother trusted with her life decided she didn't deserve to live. If you're someone who believes love stories should have happy endings, this video will shatter that illusion completely. I'm about to show you how a woman who did everything right, who was a nurse saving lives, who posted beautiful tributes to her fiancé just days before he killed her, still ended up dead on a street corner. Subscribe if you can handle the truth about what these perfect relationships really hide behind the social media posts and wedding plans. Because I'm going to break down every red flag that was missed, every warning sign that was ignored, and every moment where this tragedy could have been prevented. And if you're not subscribing after hearing this, well, I guess some people prefer living in denial about how dangerous love can actually be. But don't worry, I'll be here when reality hits you too. Let me show you exactly how a killer manipulates his victim through social media. On October 21, 2021, just weeks before her murder, Dena Taylor posted this on Facebook. Only in my dreams did I ever think that I'd be getting married in a beautiful mansion to the most kind, gentle, dedicated, and loving man that I would ever meet. When they say dreams come true, please believe them. This isn't love. This is love bombing, and it's a classic abuser tactic. Notice how she's not just saying she loves him. She's practically worshiping him. She called him her sweet knight in shining armor, and said he handles me with care like fine china. These aren't normal relationship posts. These are the desperate words of a woman trying to convince herself and everyone else that her relationship is perfect. Abusers train their victims to publicly praise them. It creates a narrative that makes it harder for the victim to leave and harder for others to believe abuse is happening. Dena wasn't just posting about love. She was posting proof that would later make people say, but he seemed so perfect for her. But here's what everyone missed. On December 6, 2020, just 1 month after making their relationship official, Dena posted something completely different. I feel disconnected, overworked, and sleep-deprived. The very next day, she posted what appeared to be a breakup message. Relationships sometimes fail because we look for perfection rather than value in a partnership. My learning and growth has been major. She added the hashtag relationship lessons. This woman was trying to leave him just months into their relationship. But by May 2021, she was posting engagement photos again. This is the cycle of abuse, the breakup, the love bombing to get her back, the promises to change. On August 5, 2020, before she even met Deontay, Dena had posted, I will not settle or compromise my standards to fit into a box that's too small. Come correct or don't come at all. This woman knew her worth. She had standards. She had boundaries. But somehow, Deontay Sims managed to break down every single one of them. While Dena was posting about her gentle, dedicated, and loving man, her friends and family were seeing a completely different story behind closed doors. The woman who once declared she wouldn't settle was now isolated from the people who cared about her most. Deontay had systematically cut her off from her support system. Her neighbors later revealed they had been hearing loud arguments coming from the house for weeks. These weren't normal couple disagreements. These were explosive fights that woke up the entire neighborhood. But during the day, when people saw them together, Deontay played the perfect gentleman role flawlessly. This is how coercive control works. The abuser creates two versions of himself, the public Prince Charming and the private monster. Dena's friends probably thought she was lucky to have found such a good man. They had no idea she was living in fear, walking on eggshells, trying desperately to keep him happy so he wouldn't explode again. The most dangerous part? Dena probably believed she could fix him. She was a nurse. Her job was to heal people. She likely thought her love could heal whatever was broken inside Deontay Sims. Instead, it got her killed. Here's what makes this case absolutely terrifying. Everyone loved Deontay Sims. His neighbor Doris Benson had known him since he was a child. She watched him grow up playing with her own kids. When reporters asked her about the man who had just executed his fiancée in the street, she said, "His parents were wonderful people. They really are. I still love him. I hate that it came to that, but they're just nice people." This is the most dangerous type of abuser, the one who fools everyone. Deontay wasn't some obvious monster with a criminal record and anger management issues. He was the guy next door, the one parents trusted with their children, the one who said please and thank you and helped elderly neighbors with their groceries. But here's the psychological truth nobody wants to admit. The most violent domestic abusers are often the most charming in public. They have to be. Their entire strategy depends on making sure nobody believes their victim when she tries to get help. Deontay spent years building a reputation as a good guy, specifically so he could get away with terrorizing Dena in private. Let's talk about the timeline that should have terrified everyone. Dena and Deontay started dating around August 2020. By May 2021, they were engaged. That's less than 10 months from meeting to planning a wedding. For a woman with 5 children who had previously posted about not settling and knowing her worth. This isn't romance. This is a predator moving fast to trap his victim before she can see who he really is. Healthy relationships develop slowly. Abusive relationships move at lightning speed because the abuser knows that time is his enemy. The longer his victim has to think, to observe, to talk to friends and family, the more likely she is to see through his act. Dena had been burned before. She had posted about being depleted and taken advantage of in previous relationships. She was supposed to be smarter this time, but Deontay knew exactly how to exploit her desire for love and stability.
This was the scene around 2:30 Thursday morning along Cicely Court in Upper Marlboro after police say a man shot his fiancée, who he lives with.
We were able to get to her pretty quick with some armored vehicles and the officers on the scene, but it was very apparent immediately that she was deceased.
The woman was found in the street. She'd been shot and was declared dead at the scene. Immediately, Prince George's County officers were on high alert.
As officers went to investigate at the original location of incident, they determined that an armed individual was inside of a home. Out of an abundance of caution, we declared a barricade.
The agency's Bureau of Homeland Security and Intelligence were called in to help.
The conflict management team, which is in part of my bureau, we were called out at about 3:20 this morning for a subject barricaded in his residence.
The barricade lasted 2 hours and eventually the suspect was taken into custody. Now, right now, we don't know that man's name or what his charges will be. We'll bring you those updates as they become available. Back to you.
Here's the detail that should have sent Dena running. Deontay Sims owned illegal firearms. Not just one gun, but multiple weapons that he had no legal right to possess. When police finally arrested him after the 5-hour standoff, they discovered an arsenal in that house. Think about this logically. A man who illegally owns guns is a man who has already decided the law doesn't apply to him. He's already comfortable with criminal behavior. He's already prepared for violence. No law-abiding citizen needs illegal weapons unless they're planning to use them for illegal purposes. But here's the most chilling part. Dena knew about those guns. She had to know. You don't live with someone and not know they have weapons hidden throughout the house, which means she made the conscious decision to stay with a man who was armed and dangerous. Love didn't just blind her. It made her ignore every survival instinct she had. September 15th, 2021 started like any other day. But by evening, neighbors on Cicely Court knew something was terribly wrong. The argument between Dena and Deontay had been going on for hours, and it wasn't staying inside their house anymore. Voices were carrying across the quiet neighborhood, loud enough to wake people from their sleep. What we know from police reports is that this wasn't their first explosive fight. Neighbors had been hearing these screaming matches for weeks, but this time felt different. This time, there was a desperation in Dena's voice that made people pay attention. One neighbor later said she had never heard anyone sound so afraid. Inside the house were at least 4 children, some Denas, some Deantes from previous relationships. These kids had been living in this war zone, watching the man their mother was supposed to marry slowly destroy her piece by piece. They had front row seats to domestic terrorism, and they knew something terrible was about to happen. By 2 in the morning on September 16th, the argument had reached a breaking point. Whatever Deante said or did in those final moments made Dena realize she was in immediate danger. This woman, who had spent months defending him and posting about their perfect love, finally understood that the man she was supposed to marry in just weeks was going to kill her. At exactly 2:30 in the morning, Dena Taylor made the decision that should have saved her life. She ran. She bolted from that house and onto Cecily Court, probably thinking if she could just get to the main road, if she could just get to where people could see her, she would be safe. She was wrong. Deante Sims chased her down like she was prey. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of lost control. This was a hunt. He grabbed one of his illegal firearms and pursued the mother of 5 children through the streets of Upper Marlboro. The woman who had called him her knight in shining armor was now running for her life from the man who was supposed to protect her. Dena made it about a block. Just 1 block from safety, from witnesses, from help. Deante caught up to her on that main road and shot her multiple times at point-blank range. This wasn't a warning shot or an accident. This was an execution. He stood over the woman he claimed to love and emptied bullets into her body until she stopped moving. Then he walked back to the house where those children were waiting, leaving Dena bleeding out on the asphalt like she was nothing. Like the woman who had devoted her life to healing others was just garbage to be thrown away. The neighbors who heard the gunshots said they knew immediately someone was dead. The sound wasn't random violence. It was the sound of someone being murdered with precision and intent. When Deante Sims walked back into that house, he knew his life was over. But instead of surrendering, instead of thinking about those traumatized children who had just watched their world explode, he decided to make his final stand. He barricaded himself inside and prepared for war with law enforcement.
You live in the same place for 30 years and not much will surprise you. But the sight of Prince George's County firefighters washing blood off the pavement was not something Roy here thought he'd ever see.
This is absolutely heartbreaking, really. To think that things should happen like that in your neighborhood.
Around 2 a.m. this morning, police responded to a shooting and a domestic violence call in the 12,400 block of Cecily Court in Upper Marlboro.
At least 4 kids were inside this home around 2:30 this morning when the victim and suspect ran out of the house. Police then tell us the woman ended up around the corner on that main road, and that's when detectives tell us her fiance shot and killed her. We're told her son called for help. Family members arrived, got all the kids out of the house and to safety before the suspect barricaded himself inside. Police say an armed man inside this home on Cecily Court in Upper Marlboro finally surrendered nearly 5 hours after they say he shot and killed his fiancée about a block away. Firefighters return in the daylight hours to wash the street, but neighbors say the stain of this murder is permanent.
And he heard the shots. I told my husband, I said, those are gunshots. I said, Stuart, there's a body out there. And my heart, you know, goes out. Our young people, it's just so much.
Doris Benson devastated after learning the suspect grew up with her own children. Their families, longtime neighbors.
His parents are wonderful people. They really are.
Police confirm the suspect and victim were engaged to get married and both had children from previous relationships. Investigators are trying to piece together what happened inside the home that led to the shooting as they gather evidence and interview witnesses.
Domestic violence is always an issue, and it's always something that we're trying to, provide services for. With the pandemic, obviously, it's probably compounded.
Back in the neighborhood.
And it's normally quiet. We don't hear stuff like this. And to hear that happened, it's kind of saying, for me, it's kind of not terrifying, but it's like really sad.
I still love them. I hate that it came to that. I don't know why it came to that, but they're just nice people.
The children are safe with family tonight.
One of Dena's children had the presence of mind to call family members, who rushed to the scene and got all the kids to safety before police arrived. These children had just lost their mother and watched their stepfather to be transformed into a monster. But they still had to be the adults in the situation because Deontay was too much of a coward to face what he had done. For 5 hours, negotiators tried to talk him out. For 5 hours, he held an entire neighborhood hostage while Dena's body lay cooling in the street. And when officers tried to approach the house, he fired at them twice. This man had already murdered the woman he claimed to love, and now he was trying to murder the police officers who were just doing their jobs. This wasn't grief or remorse or temporary insanity. This was a calculated decision to take as many people down with him as possible. The same man who neighbors described as wonderful and nice was now a domestic terrorist, proving that the mask he had worn for years was exactly that, just a mask hiding a monster underneath. When Deontay Sims finally surrendered after 5 hours of holding police at gunpoint, investigators expected him to lawyer up, to deny everything, to claim it was self-defense or an accident. Instead, he did something that shocked even seasoned detectives. He confessed to everything immediately. He admitted to shooting Dena Taylor multiple times. He admitted to firing at 2 police officers who were just trying to do their jobs. He laid out exactly how he hunted down the mother of 5 children and executed her in the street. But here's what made investigators' blood run cold. He showed absolutely no remorse. This wasn't a man broken by what he had done. This wasn't someone who had snapped in a moment of rage and immediately regretted it. Deontay Sims confessed like he was reading a grocery list. Cold, calculated, matter of fact. He had made a decision that Dena Taylor didn't deserve to live, and he was completely comfortable with that choice. The psychological evaluation later revealed what everyone suspected. This was a man who believed he owned Dena Taylor. In his mind, if he couldn't have her, nobody could. The wedding that was supposed to happen in just weeks wasn't about love. It was about possession. And when his property tried to escape, he destroyed it. As investigators dug deeper into their relationship, a horrifying pattern emerged. Deontay hadn't just been physically abusive. He had been systematically destroying Dena's independence for months. Financial records showed he had been controlling her money, monitoring her spending, and isolating her from friends and family who might have helped her escape. Phone records revealed he had been tracking her location constantly. Text messages showed him demanding to know where she was every minute of every day. He had turned her own phone into a surveillance device, making it impossible for her to have any privacy or freedom. This wasn't love. This was psychological imprisonment. Former co-workers at the hospital where Dena worked said she had become increasingly withdrawn in the months before her death. The vibrant, outgoing nurse who used to light up every room had become quiet and anxious. She stopped going to work social events. She stopped talking about her personal life. She was disappearing piece by piece, and Deontay was the one erasing her. The most chilling discovery? He had been researching domestic violence laws online, specifically looking up penalties for violating restraining orders. This man was planning for the possibility that Dena might try to leave him legally, and he was already figuring out how to get around the system. The real victims in this case are the children who witnessed their mother's murder. Police reports reveal that these kids heard every gunshot, saw Deontay return to the house alone, and had to process the fact that the man who was supposed to become their stepfather had just killed their mother. Child psychologists who worked with the family said the trauma these children experienced will affect them for the rest of their lives. They didn't just lose their mother. They lost their sense of safety, their ability to trust, their belief that adults will protect them. One of the children, who was old enough to understand what had happened, kept asking investigators if Deontay was coming back to hurt them too. The eldest child had to become the parent that night, calling family members and making sure the younger kids stayed safe while their world collapsed around them. These children showed more courage and maturity in one night than Deontay Sims showed in his entire life. What makes this even more heartbreaking is that some of these children had started to see Deontay as a father figure. They had been planning to be in their mother's wedding. Instead, they ended up testifying about her murder. Here's the truth that nobody wants to face. Dena Taylor didn't have to die. There were at least 7 different moments where someone could have intervened and saved her life. But every single person around her failed to act when it mattered most. First, missed opportunity. When Dena posted that cryptic message about feeling disconnected, overworked, and sleep-deprived, followed immediately by relationship lessons hashtags. Her friends and family saw these posts. They knew something was wrong. But instead of picking up the phone and asking hard questions, they just hit the like button and moved on with their lives. Second, missed opportunity. When neighbors started hearing explosive arguments coming from the house weeks before the murder. These weren't normal couple disagreements. These were screaming matches that woke up entire blocks. But instead of calling police for wellness checks, neighbors just closed their windows and minded their own business. Third, missed opportunity. When Dena's co-workers noticed she had become withdrawn and anxious at work. Hospital staff are trained to recognize signs of domestic abuse, but nobody connected the dots between her personality change and her home situation. The most critical missed opportunity happened just hours before her death. Family members who rushed to get the children after the murder clearly knew where Dena lived and had phone numbers to reach her. Where were they during those weeks of escalating violence? Why did it take gunshots for them to finally show up and help those kids? But the individual failures pale in comparison to how completely our systems abandoned Dena Taylor. Maryland has domestic violence resources, hotlines, shelters, and legal protections. None of them saved her life because they're all designed to help women who can admit they need help. Dena was trapped in the most dangerous type of abusive relationship, one where the abuser has convinced everyone, including sometimes the victim, that he's actually a good guy. When your abuser is charming, when neighbors think he's wonderful, when his own family vouches for his character, who's going to believe you when you say he's terrorizing you at home? The legal system failed her too. Deontay Sims was in possession of multiple illegal firearms, but somehow he was walking around free instead of sitting in prison where he belonged. How does a man accumulate an arsenal of illegal weapons without law enforcement noticing? How does someone with that level of criminal behavior slip through every crack in the system? Social services failed those children who were living in an active war zone. Teachers, counselors, pediatricians, someone should have noticed that these kids were showing signs of trauma from witnessing domestic violence. But nobody asked the right questions, and nobody connected the dots until it was too late. Facebook, Instagram, and every other social media platform became weapons in Deontay's hands, and they're still being used by abusers right now to trap their victims. These platforms make it incredibly easy for abusers to monitor their victims, control their social interactions, and create false narratives about their relationships. Dena's Facebook posts weren't just love letters. They were proof that she was being manipulated into publicly defending her abuser. Every time she posted about how gentle and loving Deontay was, she was making it harder for people to believe her if she ever tried to ask for help. She was building his alibi while he was planning her murder. But here's what's even more disturbing. Social media algorithms actually reward this type of content. Posts about perfect relationships and dream weddings get more engagement than posts about domestic violence resources or warning signs. The platforms are literally programmed to amplify the lies that keep women trapped and suppress the information that could save their lives. Right now, there are thousands of women posting glowing tributes to men who are abusing them behind closed doors. They're using the same language Dena used, calling their abusers their knights in shining armor, while those same men are planning their destruction. Social media companies know this is happening, but they're making too much money off the engagement to care about the body count. The technology that was supposed to connect us and keep us safe has become the perfect tool for predators to isolate and control their victims. When Deontay Sims finally faced a judge, he took a plea deal that should outrage every person who cares about justice. 55 years in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 85% of his sentence. That means this monster who executed a mother of 5 could potentially walk free when he's in his 70s. The plea deal also included 5 years of probation upon release, mandatory enrollment in a batterers intervention program, and drug and alcohol evaluations. As if therapy and counseling could somehow fix a man who hunted down his fiancée like an animal and shot her in the street. As if there's a rehabilitation program for someone who showed zero remorse after committing premeditated murder. The state's attorney called it justice. But let's be honest about what this really represents. The system valued Deontay's life more than Dena's. They were more concerned with avoiding a lengthy trial than ensuring this killer never had another chance to destroy a family. 55 years isn't justice. It's a discount on murder. Dena Taylor's eldest daughter, Yamana Trinell, had to become an adult overnight. While other college-aged kids were worried about exams and social lives, she was setting up a GoFundMe page to bury her mother and raise her younger siblings. The fundraiser raised $2,610, barely enough to cover funeral costs, let alone the lifetime of therapy these children will need. These 5 children are now scattered among family members, their lives permanently shattered by a man who was supposed to become their stepfather. They'll grow up knowing their mother died because she believed in love. They'll struggle with trust, with relationships, with the basic human need to feel safe in their own homes. The generational trauma Deontay Sims created will ripple through this family for decades. Those children will have children of their own someday, and they'll carry the scars of what they witnessed that night into every relationship they ever have. If this story made you feel anything, anger, sadness, or even just uncomfortable, then you understand exactly why this channel exists. I don't tell these stories for entertainment. I tell them because somewhere right now, there's another Dena Taylor posting about her perfect relationship while her abuser plans her destruction. Subscribe if you believe these stories need to be told. If you think other women deserve to know these warning signs before it's too late. And if you're scrolling past without subscribing after hearing about 5 children who watched their mother get executed, I have to wonder, what will it take for you to care about preventing the next tragedy? Drop a comment and tell me why stories like this don't deserve your support. I'll wait.